As the title and thumbnail of this video likely suggest, I almost got my claw cleaned by an Amber Amethyst Snow White deck. And going into this match, I thought, okay, Amber Amethyst, this is an aggro match. My opening hand here is absolutely dreadful, so I'm gonna mulligan for anti-aggro stuff, right? I need to play on curve, 1-drop, 2-drop, 3-drop, have the rush characters like Madam Mimfox, etc. in order to help me deal with Amber Amethyst. But thankfully, I do mulligan very, very well. But as I just said, we're not going up against an aggro deck, we're going up against a Snow White deck. And despite me going first and mulliganing really well into 1 and 2 drops, this opponent still almost clutches out a win. Now, keep in mind that I don't necessarily see the standard like overpowered stuff from Ruby Amethyst. I don't see a lot of my draw engine, and I don't see all but I only saw one Be Prepared. I didn't see any others, and Be Prepared at some point would have like really clutched the game out for me, I think. Nonetheless, though, take nothing away from this opponent. They played very well and a very interesting deck. I think I really like the Snow White archetype, and I really wanted to try to make it work, and this person definitely made it work for sure. This was a competitive match in ranked mode, by the way, so yeah, this was a kind of serious match. So I'm seeing like Queen and I'm seeing like Dwarfs, and I'm like, oh my goodness, this is going to be like an easy cakewalk here, right? Okay, they do end up queening and not questing, and I'm like, okay, they only have a queen on board. I can quest with this snake because they still have to play something and then wait to like use queen's ability. So I'm feeling pretty safe, and I'm feeling like everything is great. So I pass turn. You know, I have a perfect curve in the Madam Mim Snake into Maleficent into Singing Friends next turn. So yeah, drawing 3 cards. It's looking really, really rosy. But the opponent is going to shock me here by dropping a throwback from Chapter 1 in Rafiki, and I'm like, okay, yep, that makes the queen online for sure. And they're going to get free value here. Look at the tempo swing. This was a huge swing in the match right here, and this gave the opponent control of the match, tempo of the match. Thankfully, all I really need to do against a deck like this is draw Be Prepared, but you have to draw the Be Prepared. So I do see some of my draw engine early on here, and I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm doing okay. Mimfox back the Maleficent, crash into the Queen. The opponent only has a Rafiki, should be fairly manageable. Let's go ahead and ink one of these Cuscos now, since I know I'm not against aggro. Don't need to like Cusco crash or Cusco use crab, etc. We're feeling pretty good. Again, I'm thinking to myself, yeah, Snow White deck, no problem. Well, I didn't know it was a, well, I guess I saw the Dwarfs, but like, yeah, Dwarf deck, no problem, right? Before I go ahead and commentate some more, let me know in the comment section below if you would prefer seeing this once in a while where I don't speed up and cut out matches. I'm not trying to speed talk through all the actions, where you can actually see the thinking process and like kind of explaining the plays a little bit more. This opponent though ends up using Friends on their Rafiki to draw 2, so they pretty good. They draw a drop of Maleficent for more draw power, and again they have a board presence, but they only have 5 in hand. And again, I'm like, Dwarves, what are they really going to do? We drop Maleficent for more draw. And yeah, it's funny that like I didn't really see too much draw outside of this, like looping my Maleficent. But now that I have 2 Lady Tremaines, I'm valuing both of these Madam Mim Snakes in my hand. So again, this is kind of me trying to think ahead here. I don't want to use the snakes right now to keep bouncing back the Maleficent. That's why I played the Cusco. I actually want to keep the snakes for the Lady Tremaines. So the opponent extends here a little bit. They continue to ink, and their hand looks pretty strong. I think they've sung like 3 Friends at this point, which is nuts. So yeah, they definitely got a full grip. And then they drop a Snow White, and I'm like, okay, this is not the worst, because I can Sing Teeth, take out that Snow White so they can't flood the board. And I'm bound to draw into, draw spells like Merlin Rabbits, more Friends, etc. This Cusco's going to draw me a card, and I should be drawing into Be Prepared soon enough, right? So yeah, we take out the Snow White to shut him off of like flooding the board from Dwarves. The goat here doesn't really do much, because again, that Queen Rafiki play gave the opponent total control of the match here. So I'm like thinking to myself, okay, what do I really want to do? This probably would be considered a misplay, but again, not having other removal, I'm like, I just need to prevent the opponent from flooding the board here. They've got 6 cards in hand, they're gonna have 7, and they can just drop a ton of Dwarves, and I'm basically praying that I top deck a Be Prepared, so I just have one in the back ready to like execute it when I see that the opponent has kind of dumped their hand, because that's what Dwarves want to do, right? They want to end up overextending and then just questing for a whole bunch. So they continue to ink down to 6 cards, and they pay all 6 ink for a Snow White, and I'm like, holy cow, this card is a problem. I definitely need to out this. I can't let this thing quest. Unfortunately, like I'm hoping right now that they quest with their 2 cards here, because actually, would it make a difference? No, it wouldn't, right? Because I'd have to crash one. Yeah, no, sorry, I can crash Tremaine and Maleficent. I can crash Maleficent into Rafiki if they quested, crash Maleficent into Maleficent. Then my own Lady Tremaine would be exerted with 3 damage on from the Rafiki, and then I could shift for 4 Lady Tremaine on Lady Tremaine out to Snow White, and then use Mim Snake to bounce both the Lady Tremaines back to hand. But the opponent didn't quest, so I couldn't do that. So I'm thinking to myself, okay, let me just be prepared, stop this opponent from Snow Whiting. Now I'm feeling relatively okay. I'm like, okay, they've got a Bashful that will quest for 3 next turn probably, and they have a Simba, but I outed the Snow White, so that's great. I'm going to opt to drop the Ursula here to draw a card. So again, not the strongest card draw, but the, you know, keeping the opponent low on lore comes in handy. So I'm inking the Surfer there because I value the Snake and the Maui more. Oh, man, and I'm like, oh my goodness, the opponent drops another Snow White, and I'm just like, okay, they're going to get some value off of this. And it didn't really hit me right now until I saw the opponent do it. I'm like, yeah, I'm just going to Maui away this Simba. That's no problem. But then they're going to quest with Snow White and get the Simba back. So they just basically have an infinite bodyguard loop, right? So if you don't have non-challenging removal to deal with the Snow White, you're in trouble. And so it's also funny that I never saw Maleficent Dragon as well, which I play 3 copies of in the deck. So I'm feeling comfortable here. I'm like, okay, this is fine. Yep, next turn when they quest with the Snow White, I out it, no problem. If they want to crash stuff into the Maui, that's fine. But again, I'm not thinking things through fully, because the opponent could technically quest with the Snow White, get back a Rafiki, and then because they have a Rafiki in the grave, and even though I click on their graveyard, it doesn't actually click into me, and they could Snow White for Snow White too, right? Like it's kind of cool how useful Well-Wisher is and how underused she really was in this meta of Rise of the Floodborn, because I do think she's a fantastic card. She's just very slow, and if you can find a way to make her work like this opponent has, so shout out to Sylvian Boy, it's really, really good. And then again, just like not paying attention, I totally did not like think that the opponent would be on that Rapunzel, and I'm like, oh yeah, of course, Amber, and they're not aggro. They're obviously playing Rapunzel, so I'm totally not playing around the Rapunzel here. At least they're unable to quest with the Bashful, but they do end up dropping a Rafiki anyway, so they don't even need to Snow White it back, and I'm like, holy cow, that's not great. And they're, you know, feeling pretty good here. I don't have a Maui again, so I can't take out that Snow White, but it doesn't matter because they have a Simba bodyguard. So I'm like, okay, this is not great. I have to draw into one of 3 Be Prepared left in the deck. So I'm in a little bit of trouble here. The opponent is on 5 questing next turn, but they will be on 8 if they drop a Dwarf, because it'll turn the Bashful online. So right now I'm thinking like, okay, they're definitely not going to try to challenge through on this Ursula. There's way more value for them if they just continue to quest. So my Ursula is fine to keep questing. Arguably another misplay here. Should I have Tremaine to force an out and then snaked back the Tremaine? I guess my thinking here was I just need to draw cards. I just need to see a Be Prepared, because as soon as this opponent floods the board, like, they're going to quest for like 15 in one turn and win the game. The Ursula, though, is a huge problem. And because they're unlikely to try to deal with the Ursula, I can actually clutch out a win if I draw a Spellbook or a Goat. Because on 10 ink right here with these double Lady Tremaines in my hand, I can actually drop Tremaine, shift Tremaine for a total of 10 ink. And then if I have a Goat or Spellbook, and these, you know, the Ursula's not going to get challenged, my Ursula and Tremaine will quest for 5 total, on top of the 3 that my Ursula is about to quest for next turn. So this is like 2 turns away. As long as the opponent is unable to clutch out the game at this point, I can slow them down enough that if I draw a Goat or a Spellbook or a Be Prepared, I should be a-okay. So you can see here the opponent ends up just like dumping their whole hand onto the board pretty much, and it looks like they have game. The Duke, unfortunately, is a little bit of a problem here, but we're going to snake away the Simba. And I've already calculated this out, like, during the opponent's turn. I'm going to drop the Tremaine, expecting that he takes out the Maleficent, and then I'm going to shift the Tremaine, expecting that he takes out the Duke. And then I just have to hope he doesn't throw everything into the Ursula and take it out. Because if they do that, I have to then, I'm really in top deck mode. I have to pray to top deck and Be Prepared. because I think with the Grumpy, they would have enough to take out the Ursula. But yeah, they end up taking away the Duke. So yeah, they have 8 questing pressure on board, and I'm like, okay, they probably don't play Goat or Spellbook, so them going to 19 should be manageable. And if I pass turn here, you can see I have 5 questing power on board. There you can see me hover over it. And then I just have to drop Goat, and I win the game next turn. If the opponent doesn't have a Goat or a Spellbook on their side, and if they opt not to challenge my Ursula. So they end up questing with the Snow White and not getting back to Rafiki. So I'm like, that's fantastic. Then they drop their whole hand here. So really playing into either you have Be Prepared or you lose the game. But they're, I think, maybe forgot that I could win the game with a Goat or a Spellbook. But yeah, they go to 19 here, and I just give them the well played once I saw that they weren't challenging the Ursula, and we end up clutching that out. Very close game, so props to you, Sylvian boy. GG's. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you drop a like. Thank you for watching. Quantum is out.